podcast contains potentially adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly sexual context. Listener discretion is advised. Okay, we're on. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, welcome to Drinking with Authors. Yay! The time of COVID. So I say that because we're all doing this via Skype. So if we have technical issues, too bad. That's how this works. So I am your host, Erica Lance. With me as a co-host is
Vanessa Valiente.
And our amazing guest today is
Elizabeth Seckman.
Yay! Thank you for being on. Okay, we always talk about what we're drinking, so if people want to drink along, they can. So today I have a sparkling, semi-sweet red wine called Stella Rosa, and I found it in my fridge because somebody gave it to me, and I thought it was regular red wine, and so then I discovered it needed to be cold, and then it's COVID, so you scavenge during COVID for alcohol around your house. So true. And unbeknownst to me, Vanessa, what are you drinking that kind of rhymes with what I'm doing here?
Yeah, it's also a Stella, but I'm going with the good old reliable Stella beer. So it's a little bit different, but it's nice and refreshing.
And what are you drinking, my dear?
I have a very classy gourmet screw top. No corkscrew needed. For in times of COVID and emergency, you don't want to be stuck having to find a screwdriver or a corkscrew. So, but this is Barefoot Fruscato strawberry flavor.
Oh, that's super fancy. We are super fancy now.
For a good summer day, yeah. So we'll just go ahead and get some of that.
I would get some of that started. Okay, so tell our listeners about what you write.
I write women's fiction and romance. Basically, yeah, women's fiction.
And that's right. We're gonna drink. We're gonna loosen you up here some of the podcast.
This is my first podcast, and I'm really glad that I can't see myself. So I can't see my double chin. I don't have to worry about that. But yeah, so if I'm a little bit,
no,
she doesn't know what she's doing, and then you're right. I don't know what I'm doing. So
you are perfect. We can see you because it's a Skype call and it makes it easier to have a conversation. But everybody's just going to listen. Nobody's going to get to see you. They have all your publicity photos. That's what they're going to see. So you're going to be amazing.
That's even better. Photoshopped.
Yeah, exactly. Austin took some pictures of us doing the podcast, and then he made them all beautiful, and I was like, wow, who's that? Oh wait, that's me. Okay, cool. That's what I look like under Photoshop. I appreciate that. Okay, so you write romance. Is it sweet romance? Is it erotic romance? What kind of romance?
Not erotic, and I think sometimes that's where it falls better into women's fiction than say romance, because there's a little bit of everything. I know you've talked to Barbie, my PA, and Barbie, it's funny, she'll get the first draft, and so romance follows the, I don't want to say trope, but
it's a trope. You can say that. It totally follows a trope.
I'm always real cautious because I don't want to sound like I'm bad mouthing romance either, because I love romance. But it'll be funny because she'll send me messages and say, this is where you just left romance, like where you left the genre. So like in the book that is free right now and About Us, she starts a relationship but pauses kind of the relationship to get some mental some therapy and some things, and Barbie's like, here you go, you left romance because I guess in romance the love will conquer the problem.
Yes, that is the trope.
That's women's fiction. I want her to conquer her problem and then go on to the romance, rather than love fix the problem, but love be there once the problem is solved.
Yeah, and I don't think it badmouths romance at all, because I'm an erotica writer. I write chick lit erotica, and I've written some romance stories, and we have a publication company, so we have a lot of authors that can write romance stories. But there is an exact thing romance readers want to read. Like there is and it's not bad, and that doesn't mean you're not creative or anything like that, but that happens to be the thing. And it doesn't mean you can't and shouldn't write other things or break genres. We're huge fans of breaking genres, but there's a reason Hallmark makes like 250 movies every Christmas or some crap like that. Like that's something that's wanted in the world.
I do feel sort of not sensitive to it, but I think romance just gets trashed so often. Like you say, there's nothing wrong with the Hallmark movie. So I don't want to like also say, I would never want it to be misconstrued that I'm saying romance isn't good. I'm just very bad about coloring in the lines is my problem. So I start loving it. And it's like, and I had my agent on the one book, she was like, try to stay just really hard, try to stay within the trope, just stay in the trope. And I started and I was like, screw it, there's a ghost. There's a ghost in there. And she's like, oh, okay. So, but yeah, you're, when you're kind of just, so, but yeah, she said you might want to just go ahead and just make the hop to women's fiction. So that way you don't have the worries, because the ghost was there to deal with them. Also some underlying issues, some underlying abandonment issues. And it's not the love relationship that's solving that problem, but it's the relationship with the ghost, which sounds insane.
No, it doesn't. I wrote an entire short story where a girl goes back home and she falls in love with her boyfriend that's dead now. She does, he's not a zombie, he's a ghost that shows up, and she brought her husband with her, and it's a whole thing of that. So yeah, no, trust me, you can do whatever you want to with the ghost, and we support you 100%. So when did you start writing?
Let's see, my first one, I will get dates wrong, as my kids will point out. I'm horrible with numbers. I'm thinking 2014.
Did you write before that though? Like, when did you actually start writing?
I would say I've written my whole life. I'm one of those kind of people that even as a kid had the Notebook. My very first actual novel.
I love the quotation marks. Nobody can see that, but we all have those. Yes.
Yeah.
I was actually in the 6th grade. My parents bought me the old typewriter, the one with the ribbon and all that. I wrote a 2-page romance novel. 2 pages, 12 chapters. So yeah, that was my first crack at a romance novel. It was about in the 6th grade. So, and it was funny because I was reading it the other day. I was going through, my mom had passed away, so she sent the box of treasures of my stuff. And I found that novel, and I was actually like, wow, that wasn't too bad. I wonder if I stole it from a book, but it said, I think her name was Annabelle, and Annabelle was leaving, and the guy had hit her, and the hit didn't hurt as much as the sting of the embarrassment of being slapped. Well, gee, okay. But yeah,
wow.
That was the only treasure in that, and then it quickly went to, standard 6th grade kind of stuff. So.
Well, we're putting out a Teen Angst book, by the way, at the end of the year, and we literally are just asking people to send pictures or, scan copies of their Teen Angst stuff, and we're just publishing it, no holds barred, just like this is what it was. So if you want to contribute, please feel free, because we all have that stuff where like, oh my gosh, and his love for me was unfettered, and you're like, oh my gosh, did I actually write that, and did I send that to anybody?
Oh, yeah.
I think I wrote a bunch of short stories similar to that as well.
Maybe I can beat that out and send you a chapter.
I think you could send us that entire novel, and we could publish that entire novel in this anthology. And then you could be like, Mom, I finally published that work you saved.
She would always tease me because I gave it to her as a gift. It was like one of the gifts, and I was like, there was even a note with it that says, "One day when I'm rich, the gifts will get better." Like one. Before that ever happened, but.
That is brilliant, though. I think that is brilliant. So, what I'm going to be frank, because I've been drinking wine. What took you so long to actually get a novel out? Do you think?
I think I blame a lot of it for being from West Virginia. Um, I'm from West Virginia, and it's Appalachia, and so there is that culture of, I don't want to say culture of failure, but like as a kid, you're not really told that you can do anything, if that makes any sense. Like when I went
Totally.
to when I went my freshman year of college, I went to Marshall University, and I was a first generation college student, and so was my roommate. So the first thing the college asked us to do was come to this seminar. It was like a first generation college student kind of retention program. Well, we get in there, and the very first thing they start telling us is the statistics on how we're going to fail.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
this whole, first generation college students, like the how many make it through the freshman year, how many make it through the sophomore year. And I remember I told my roommate, I'm not going back, because like when I got there, I was naive enough to think I could do anything. And now they're giving me all these statistics on how badly I'm going to fail. So yeah, I mean, that to me, I told, and she was like, no, it's meant to keep us in school. And I said, well, that's like, because I played sports in high school, not well, I practiced them, but I mean, I was there, I was on the team. And I said, that would have been like a pep talk from the coach that says, hey, look, guys, they're twice our size, way more skill. Y'all are probably going to be blown out by halftime, but let's get in there and give it a try. I mean, it's just, so I told her, I said, no, I'm done. I'm just gonna, I had my little sheet of classes you had to check off. And so I don't know that as a culture, we're like told to think big. So,
How did you
and
like overcome that though? Like you said you didn't even want to go back. I feel like you finished it. So what was there anything that kind of just pushed you to like get past all that?
yeah, well, it was very much a blessing. What had happened is my mom, it was funny. She had gone to the Outer Banks, which is my home away from home. I love it there. So she had gone to the Outer Banks, and she was there a day that Dixie Browning, who is a writer who lives on the Outer Banks, she was doing a book signing. Well, my mom was always a big book junkie. She would stalk any author. So my mom, of course, finds out there's a signing, and she goes, and she gets this, well, and it was a Harlequin, so she gets it signed, and she brings it home to me as my gift, because she'd always pick up something. And she gave it to me, and I was kind of like, and she was like, you snarky little reader, just read the book. And I said, like, don't roll your eyes at a Harlequin, read the damn book. So and it was the autograph to me, and I read it, and it was really enjoyable. So I messaged Dixie because I found out that she also was Bronwyn Williams. She had also been writing under the pseudonym Bronwyn Williams, and my sister was a huge fan. So I wrote her a letter and asked her if she would sign my sister a book for her 50th birthday. And we started corresponding. And so, and I told her that I had always wanted to be a writer, but I was never in the right place to be a writer. Like, I didn't grow up in New York. I didn't have access to, that sort of what in my mind was the only way to do it. And she was like, you know what, you want to write? So I thought, well, okay, maybe I will.
I think that's brilliant. And, we talk about that a lot, is that something has occurred in certain places and with certain parents to not encourage a child's level of art, whatever that level of art is, whether it be writing or sculpting, or like there's so many different forms of artwork that you have. And to not encourage your child to be creative in that way and encourage them to keep going, and that they can do it, and helping them find the tools to go, this is not an easy thing, but this is what can happen. I think it's something, because, but at the same time, I was talking to Jonathan Mayberry, who I had him on a panel yesterday via Skype, and his first book that hit it big, he was 48 years old when he became a bestseller. He wasn't like 20 and shot out and Fault in Our Stars and blah blah. He's this big deal, right? The same is true with J.K. Rowling. She was in her, I think, late
Well,
30s, early 40s.
from bed. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. He has clothes on all the important parts, so
Yeah.
that's cool.
Kitten Carter, and then
Oh, and kittens. We have
Aw,
bare-chested men walking around with kittens. That's like a whole entire calendar, isn't it?
that's the whole genre of novels.
oh, that's right.
I love that. That's a novel in itself.
Ladies. Yeah.
That is awesome. But I think that when he said that to me, I was like, that's true. And he talked about Bram Stoker. Bram Stoker did not get popular, really, actually, until he died. But he wasn't popular until he was older. He was 50 when Bram Stoker's Dracula came out. So it's never too late to be successful, but you just have to keep putting your foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
So
And I think
There's ever a time where you feel confident when you first start. I don't think any writer ever feels like they're ready or they're confident, but you just have to just keep doing it, because the alternative is not doing it, and it will never happen. But if you try, then your chances are greater, of success.
Well, I'll tell friends sometimes, some writer friends that get frustrated. I always tell them writing isn't so much a hobby or a job or a skill or anything else. It's an addiction. And if you're addicted to it, nothing's going to stop you. And I think one of the things, once you get older, you really just stop caring so much what other people think. When you're younger, you worry more about, whether it's going to sell, what are people going to say? If it doesn't sell, where are they going to be? You know what I mean? How many people are laughing at you or whatever. You do hit a certain age in your life where you really just don't give a crap. So.
which is, I think, brilliant. I mean, that's my opinion. It's pretty brilliant to not give a flying crap what's happening and stuff like that. And I think it's important to get to that point where you don't give a crap what's happening. Let's talk about what kind of writer you are. So are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? Are you an outliner? Are you a phalanxer? What kind of writing do you do?
I would probably say I fall under Plancer. I like to have an outline. Usually when I come up with a idea for a book, I'll have I don't know if you'd call it the theme, but I'll think, well, I want a story about whatever. So I usually know the ending. I know how I want it to turn out. I know what I want the characters to learn. Then it becomes more of a, how do I get them there? So then there's the beginning, which is, one of the hardest things to write. And then yes, I'll do an outline, and sometimes it's almost like a mini draft, almost like a summary. I'll just kind of go through. But then once I start, there's lots of wiggle room. So, yeah. So I start, I think, with the bare bones outline, and then once the characters start to have their own voice and their own kind of personality, they take on their own voice, then they start going in their own direction.
So do your characters lead you? Like a lot of authors talk about their characters, like one of our good friends feels like she stalks behind her characters and takes notes of everything they're doing, and other people sit and the character goes left and they're like, where are you? Okay, fine. Okay, we're going that way. What are we doing? How do you feel about your characters?
I think that's a very good description. I mean, at some point in time, like when you start off, they all kind of feel like the exact same character. They all kind of feel, and that'll be my first initial worry, is I'll think, is this the same heroine that I just had in the last book? Like these, so a lot of basic similarities, but then at some point, they start to take on their own voice, and you can it's almost like once you get to know someone in life, like you can guess what they said. Like I have a friend who knows me very well, and she knows what I think in my head and what I say are often two completely different things. But I'll lie and say, and I said, okay, so I was in this clothing store, it was a bra store,
Mm-hmm.
and the dressing rooms opened right up to the general selling area. Well, so it was locked. The lady comes and unlocks my door and swings it open. And so it's like boobs out for the world. And I was like, so I told my friend, I was like, and she swung the door open and I was like, excuse me. And she was like, did you really say that? Because she knows me. I was like, no, I apologize, damn it. I'm apologizing. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for showing my boobs to the world because you unlocked my door and swung it open. So, but it's like she knew me. So I think the same happens with characters. After a while, you know them. And so when you're writing their dialogue or their actions, you're like, oh no, they wouldn't have done that. Even though it would help the plot if they would. But they wouldn't. So.
No, totally. I think that's awesome. What do you feel like you do really, really well as an author?
Oh, that sounds so. Ooh, I kind of think I do pretty well at dialogue. I enjoy the dialogue. I hear them in my head, and I think sometimes that is. I'm horrible with description, so I know that I have to go back in and kind of like, I'll send it to my beta readers, and they'll be like, "What state is this even in?" I'm like, "Oh, crap. All right, fine." So, but I mean, it's the dialogue I think that I like, and I also like building characters. My background's in social work, so I'm used to the whole, family systems theories and personality development, blah blah blah. So, what is it that made this character who they are, and all that. So, yeah.
Very cool. So what are you terrible at?
I am terrible at descriptions. And then if I try to put like, I think, well, I'm going to put them in, and then I'll go and I'll look at reviews, and I'm like, oh my God, seriously, did we really need to know what color the floor was? And I'll be like, I didn't think you did, but other people thought you. So, I mean, I never know, like, should I put more of that in or less of that in? Some readers, they want to know all that. Me, I'll probably skim right through it. If I'm reading a book, probably going to tell me they're in a house, I'm good.
No, I think that's important because it's also important with genres, and that brings us to the topic of reviews. So do you read your reviews?
Not anymore. Very rarely.
Okay, so let's talk about your little review journey, because a lot of people, exactly the way you are, do not, like, they start doing it and then they're like, this was a terrible plan. So
Yeah.
did you read reviews in the beginning?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's like the little review junkie. Check them every day. Check and see if somebody else has something to say. So,
and what happened there?
It will block you up quicker than anything. Because even one that's nice, even a nice 3-star, which now I kind of will go and check out the 3 stars, because those readers, they're smart. They're smart. So every now and then I will read them, because I'll notice things. I noticed that I made my characters cry way too much in the early books from reading reviews. Some of these readers and these like 3 and 4-star reviewers, and 5-star, we love 5-star, but I mean, they'll put a lot of intelligent thought into the story, and like, would have been nice, like, the one book I had, the Who's Your Dad, where he brings her some flowers, and somebody said, I really thought that was going to like come back at the end of the book. I missed an opportunity there. So like, he had brought her dandelions, told her if she kept them long enough they'd turn into wishes. And she said, I really thought that would come back at the end of the book. As a writer, I didn't think to bring that back. It would have, and it would have been a great, closed in that circle. I thought, ooh, note to self, when you throw something in there that is kind of symbolic, make it recur. So, yeah.
That makes sense. Do you find, like, one of the things that always drives me crazy about reviews is if this wasn't really the book for that person and they're giving you a review?
Yes, I have one from a man it was my very first book, and I think this might have been the review that made me decide, stalking the reviews is probably not a great idea. It said, the review, see, and this is sad because I can almost remember it verbatim. I hate romance. but, and I'm like, then why did you buy the book? Like, did somebody give it to you for free? Did somebody say, here, you have to, I thought, so, people ask me all the time, will you read and review like this science fiction? And I'll be like, I hate science fiction. So I am not the reviewer for you, because you're already starting, if you're going up to bat, we're going to throw you the pitch while you're still in the parking lot, because I just don't like reading it. So, but yeah, those ones, yeah, what are you thinking?
No, total. I agree. What about you? Do you review?
I will review, but only books that I like. I will never give an author a bad review. If I read a book that I completely hate, I might, and you've asked me to review it, I might message you and say, it has this or that flaw that probably could use fixed. But unless I can read a book and enjoy it, I'm not going to review it, because I'll never give an author a bad review, because I don't want to be a reviewer. So that's not my profession. So I'm not going to pick apart another writer.
No, that makes sense. Do you read books all the way through?
Not anymore. I used to. If I started a book, even if I hated it, I would power my way through it. But now I'm too busy. So if I hate the book, I'm going to read I'll read the first 3 chapters. If you haven't grabbed me, I might skim to the middle. If I'm still not all in, I'm out. So I
No,
might chapter to see how it turned out, but
no, I think that's something that comes with age, and in a good way, is that your time is valuable. Like, so if you don't have it, be willing to walk away and go, nope, 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 nope. But do you have friends that ask you to read stuff and you start reading it and you're like, oh dear God, this is terrible?
that's hard. Yeah. It happens every now and then. But then again, as my kids point out, I wasn't a huge fan of Pulp Fiction first time I watched it. Everybody loves that. So just because I don't like something doesn't mean, and they've like forced me to like watch it again until I'm past the whole, I'm not big into like gory kind of movies. And so they're like, but you've got to watch this movie again, because there's all kinds of subtleties. So, yeah. But so who am I? You know what I mean? Just because I hate something doesn't mean I'm the end all.
Oh, no, it's true. I think there's an audience part to that you have, but it's very interesting dynamic when you're a writer, you have a skill set. And I think this would be true if you're a doctor, a lawyer, or an insurance agent. I don't care what it is, right? You know stuff that the common person doesn't necessarily know, right? So you could be reading something and be like, oh. So you got to go, do I tell this person how bad this is? Like, where is the line? And so it's interesting when you try to go, it's kind of like going clothes shopping with your friends. I always ask my friends, I'm like, do you like that outfit? Like, that's my question, because they're like, what do you think? And I'm like, do you like it? And if they're like, oh my God, it's the best outfit, I love it, it's the, then I'm like, you should get it. That's my response.
Well, I mean, if it's a good friend, usually I'll only read for, because you are busy. So I have to kind of like you to do the reading. I always tell them, this is my opinion, take it or leave it. I mean, if I knew everything I was doing and was a master of my craft, I'd be J.K. Rowling. So, temper the advice with this, but here's what I'm seeing, that as a reader, and a lot of times I'll separate things out from, as a writer and as a reader. Like, I have read some things that, literally, the structure and everything is horrible, but the story's good, So, and then there's some things that are just technically perfect, but it's like a total snooze fest. I did have one friend, and I told her, I said, the likability factor of your characters, like, they're all mean. All of them are mean. I don't know who to root for. There's so many good things. There's good dialogue. There's good, the plot and stuff is there, but everybody's backstabby and mean, and I'm not quite sure. So, and it did offend her. It made her mad. And I told her, I said, but never take one writer's advice. Send it to other people.
Totally.
Yeah, don't tear up a script. Not a script. Don't tear up a manuscript because one person tells you they don't like it. But if you're getting a general consensus, this might be something you want to take a look at. And one of the things, because I know people are kind, whenever I ask my beta readers to read, or just my readers, I'll sometimes call my alpha readers, my readers that aren't even writers. So I'll ask them, because they'll say, well, what do you want to know? And I'll always tell them, I just want a general feedback and mark it every time you put the book down. Like, and for how long? So like, and why? Like if you're reading the book and you put it down for a week, I got a problem there. I've lost you. If you put it down because, I had to go finish dinner and then I picked it back up an hour later. So that's kind of how I want to know whether that's how I'll judge pacing. So, and I'll tell, and that's what I told my friend. I said, you need to send it to other people. If you're getting the same kind of general feedback, you could have a problem and you might want to kind of check it out again. But she hasn't talked to me much since then. But because you invest so much, you put your heart and soul into these books, and to have somebody say, and especially, and that's, I told a mutual friend of ours, I said, I think part of the problem with me is it was like a structural issue. So that's not a kind of thing where you're like going through and fix, this sentence needs tweaked and that one. You're talking going back to, ground zero and just rebuilding. And so that's what I told her. I said, I'm sometimes I'm the nasty person kind of telling you, yeah, you got about another year's worth of work on this one when they just want to hit publish tomorrow. So
yeah, no. But I think that's like you have to. I think in writing, any author, like you just have to be, have that thick skin to at least listen to what the other person has to say, even if it's something you don't agree with. Sometimes it's always good just to let it sit there and just like, okay, why did this person feel this way about a particular piece? Like, even if you don't agree with their recommendation, sometimes if you just give yourself an opportunity to like think about it, then you come up with a solution that's better for you as well as meeting the problem that the reader is seeing, and so sometimes if you don't agree right away, just let it sink in and think about it, because sometimes you'd be surprised some of the things that you come up with, and then you go back to your beta reader or in your case your alpha reader, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't think of that, and you fixed the problem and you made the story amazing,
Yeah.
No, yeah. I think that's important, and I think it's important to stress that you can have what you think is the best story in the entire world, but there are technical sides to a story that make readers want to read it. And it's not to abandon all hope your story. It's to go, you need good grammar. You need good pacing. You need good sentence structure. You need things in the right tense. And I hate to say this, unless we've gone to school with a lot of English classes that we actually paid attention to and didn't sleep through or try to get through the things, I can tell you, like in my particular case, I am not that expert. I'm learning and I do some stuff to learn about it to get better. And every time I write, I get better. But I, a while ago, took the view that if I need to have a conversation with my editor about story, I want to have that conversation. Like sit down and go, where do you think I'm missing, or where do my beta readers think I'm missing something in a story or something? But when it comes to all that other crap, I'm like, please just fix it and tell me what to pay attention to in the future. Like, I don't want to have a whole conversation about that I had the wrong tense and you moved these verbs around. I want to see it so I don't do the same thing in the future. But I want to be done with it. Like, I'm not the expert on grammar and sentence structure and all of that stuff. I'm getting better. I'm not an expert. So I think people forget that it's kind of like you can change your own oil. Everybody can look up a YouTube video on their car and in the instruction manual and change their own oil, right? A lot of people do that. You have young sons. I'm sure some of them are very proficient in fixing crap about their car, right? I am not that human being by any stretch of the imagination. I am not interested. I know I could do it, but I will take it to somebody who can do it in like 10 minutes and then give my car back. Because I could guarantee if I did it, it is going to be an all-day enterprise. And I may or may not have 100% successful results doing it.
Well, and there's also the problem. I mean, if we're talking like editing your own stuff, it as a writer, you'll gloss right over your own mistakes 100 times because you'll fill in the blanks. I had one, and it's never been published, but I had this story because it's structurally a mess, so it would take like a complete rewrite to even get this thing ready. But I liked the story. But what had happened is I had one of the characters die, and I knew she was going to come back. I knew she wasn't really dead, and a reader picked up real fast. Nobody cared. Nobody was sad at the funeral, and I'm like, oh, I never even. But yeah, so it's stuff like, and I had went back over and reread that story. I never really picked up on that. So you do have to use those outside voices because as a writer, we fill in the blanks. We know what's coming. We know what's going to happen. So
Yes.
grammar errors. We'll go past our own grammar errors because we'll just read right over it.
1000%. Okay, we need to take a quick break. We ran a little over. We're going to take a quick break and we will be right back.
Okay.
This is the voice of Drinking with Authors. You are at our commercial break, and our commercial is, hey, do you want to be a guest on our show? Or do you have a question for one of the guests on our show? Or do you have a brilliant drink recipe that we've never heard of? That would have to stump us. But you could reach us at drinkingwithauthors@gmail.com or on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. You can direct message or even just leave a comment on one of our posts. We would absolutely love to hear from you.
Drunk me thinks I can pour with the cap on,
You think we'll just wipe it off right there, and hey, we're good.
Oh my
Drunk me
goodness.
one time high-fived a friend and blacked her eyes. You got to watch. She had too big a rock. And when I high-fived her, she was drunk too, and it came back and smacked her in the face and blacked her eye, and she was running for office, and I was like, tell me you're in some kind of gang fight or something. I don't know. You have to come up with some kind of backstory because getting high-fived by a friend while you're drunk isn't going to be a good one on the campaign trail. Maybe it's West Virginia, so.
Oh my goodness. I have friends that live up. I actually just drove to West Virginia, believe it or not.
Yeah.
A friend of mine passed away last year and he had a cat. And I took the cat up to his parents. It had been long coming, obviously, because COVID made it so that I was like, can I go? Or can I even get through the states to drive up there? So it's been a long time. And I took the cat up to them. And it was very funny because driving through the states, I got to see people's different views of COVID. And there's a lot of there's beautiful places in West Virginia. It's absolutely beautiful, but there is definitely some old school, old time, different.
Here's banjos when you get out of the car.
Exactly. But what was really funny to me is I play this video game called Fallout 76 and it's set in West Virginia. And it's set in West Virginia after nuclear attacks, but there was a town called Grafton. And in the video game, Grafton has this big, huge monster, the Grafton monster. And I was like, that's Grafton? Because we drove past it and I'm like, this is where the Grafton monster is. And my friend's like, you're ridiculous.
Little known fact there. That's where my mother was born. She was born in Grafton.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we go way back. Now my dad, he's a Buckeye, so he was from Ohio. But yeah, West Virginia. We coming back from the beach one time, our GPS routed us through Paw Paw. And I told my husband if we weren't like native West Virginians, I'd be locking the doors and be afraid to get out of the car because I swear if you listen closely enough, you could hear banjo music and somebody was going to get raped. I was like, you just know this is one scary place. And even the name, Paw Paw, West Virginia. I mean, that's just, so yeah. But,
Scary. It's scary. Okay. So how many books have you published now?
I think it's 7 or 8, and then some smaller pieces and anthologies.
Very cool. So what is your latest release?
I just did About Us, the one I did for free. And it's supposed to be the first in a 3-book series, which I haven't. I have the next one outlined, but not yet started on writing. So it was a book. I wrote it and then I sent it to my agent, and she said that the woman at the opening of the book, she's married and she's wanting to leave an abusive husband, and his cousin, her best friend, has always had a crush on her, so she calls him for help to like pack up and leave the house. So just with that, my agent was like, I enjoyed it. She said, we can't sell that because any whiff of, extramarital anything, it will not sell, because that's so. But and I really liked the book, and then I had sent it to Barbie, and she was like, put that on Wattpad. She's like, it's already written, so you may as well, at least use it for a little bit of something. So I started, and I'd only had like I told her, I said, well, I don't have the whole thing written. I only had like the first half written. And so I put it on Wattpad, and as readers were giving feedback, that was kind of fun. So as they were giving feedback, what they liked, what they didn't like, kind of, that's how the second half of the book kind of got itself written out. So
That's very cool. And so you're working on that series, right?
Mhm.
Is that what's coming up next for you?
now I have one with my publisher. It's called Flip My Heart, and it's a standalone. It's the one with the ghost. It's about a lady who she is recently divorced, and her aunt dies, and so she goes back to the Outer Banks, which is where she grew up. She goes back to Rodanthe, and so she's going back. She did have money. She's lost her money. She's put on weight. She's divorced, so she's not at all excited to head back to this funeral and have everybody kind of see that she didn't do real well in life. And so she gets there, and the aunt had taken in a foster child that Danny is the name of the main character. So she plans to just go to the funeral and get the heck out of Dodge. And so while she's there, the aunt keeps popping up, and she's like, thinks she's losing her mind. So she goes to leave the funeral, pulls out in front of a car, ends up in the hospital. And then she finds out that the aunt had this foster kid, that Danny would just be a horrible person. This child's lost everything. And so if she packs up and leaves, the girl goes back into foster care. So she's going to go ahead and stick around on the island, kind of deal with her demons and hot guy next door. And so
There's nothing like a hot guy next door to help you deal with your demons, not gonna lie.
hot guy with some construct. When we were coming up with the taglines or whatever, I forget what they're called now. I always forget. I was like, she has problems. He has the tool to fix them. And she's like, okay, no, it's not. I can figure it out. What else do we need?
Oh, I see where you're going with.
Yeah, he's in construction. But then, like my publisher always says, you have to be careful, because if it's too racy and then they get the book and it's not racy, Yeah, then you've got disappointed readers. There was no use of that tool the way I thought it would be.
That is a true story. That is a true story. What do you think about writing in other genres? So you write women's fiction, you write romance a little bit. What do you think about writing in other genres? Have you ever thought about writing different genres?
I have thought. I had this idea for almost like a horror story, and I decided that's why Stephen King drinks, because you take those books to bed with you at night, and if they're not happy books, I'm not sleeping. You know what I mean? So,
I'm a horror writer, so I understand.
Yeah, so if I'm laying in bed and I'm, my head's filled with demons and monsters and ghosts, I'm not the bravest soul in the world. So yeah, no, I like to. I enjoy happy endings. I enjoy. I'll stay there, because I thought that was my first thought. I thought it was no wonder this poor man had a drug addiction at one time. It's probably the only way to get to sleep. So, that stuff is following you.
Are you more of a fan of like the happily ever after or happy for now kind of ending?
I like a happily ever after. I like to think that at the end of everybody's journey, the world is filled with rainbows, unicorns, and all things good.
That's terribly brave of you to think that.
Well, I mean,
It's
that's
optimism.
what, yeah. Well, I think life can be crappy enough, you know. It's going to kick you in the teeth often enough. I want stories to come with, you know. So
Totally.
yeah. So not that now I'll watch things that make me cry, but you know, that's always been my I really like Nicholas Sparks, but he makes me cry. I'm not looking to cry in my book. So, you know, yeah. They're killing off people, but now my niece, she's always like, "You need to kill somebody." And I told her one of these days I'm going to, and then I hope you regret it. And I'm going to be like, I'm going to tell everybody, my niece made this person die. I hope you all enjoy it. So,
You should put that in the dedication in the book. There's a certain point you'll get to in this book and realize something. My niece made that happen.
yes.
Or the epilogue, end of the book. My niece was the cause of this. So here is her email address if you have any difficulties with this particular situation. Oh my gosh, it's actually really, really funny because I kill characters all the time in my horror books. Like hands down, my fans have become they're used to that. I believe that horror stories, not every story has a happy ending. Like absolutely, I actually had
But
writer's block.
yeah. Oh, I said it wouldn't be good if it did because then it's too predictable.
Well, that, and I also think that when people go through terrible experiences in their life, like I kind of akin it to Hunger Games because a lot of people have watched that, but at the end of Hunger Games, they're broken. They're very broken. Like they've gone through something so traumatic that yes, they did some right things and they helped a giant cause make a social change that was necessary. But PETA and Katniss are not. They are not in a good place. I mean, they have to go be alone in a very quiet place to be okay because they're not in a good place. And I think anytime I read a story, like that's one of my big pet peeves in reading a story is when people go through this or go through an abusive relationship, not that they can't get better and stuff like that, but I don't think those kind of pieces of baggage go away. They don't
Right.
go away 100%. And so to act at the end of a story or whatever, like that went away, I don't think that's fair to your reader almost.
Well, the one book I wrote Bella's Point. It's set in the Reconstruction after the Civil War, and I had a reviewer from I forget the Indie Magazine. One of them. It was one of the. It was like a professional reviewer. What they said they liked the story all the way up until the hero lies to her, and they didn't like the fact that the hero would lie to her. And I don't want to give away the end of the story, but the heroine in the story, Bella, has been through a lot. She's been married off to a guy that she loathed by her parents. He was abusive. And so when the war starts, they lose everything. She's kind of freed by the destruction, because she comes from, the antebellum world, and where that falls apart, she's now kind of free to kind of redesign her own life. And the hero that she falls for, he's aware of those scars. He knows those scars are there. And so there is a situation in the story where he just basically lies to her, something that she thinks she's done. Well, she thinks she murders someone, and he lies to her and says no. And so they didn't like that. But I thought, to me, that's reality. He knew she had a good heart. She was a good person, and that was the kind of guilt that could, undermine any amount of, good mental health that she has put herself together with.
No, I think that's true. I think you were correct in leaving that in the story. And it's interesting though, because even if they're a reviewer, a lot of times they go from their personal things. So any audience member that you have is going to go from their personal vantage point of that piece of work. And you can objectively read it, kind of like to your point, we can go, this isn't technically right, this isn't this. But if it's something that we like, I was talking earlier today with a friend of mine, and I had given her a copy of a book, and I'm like, can you write a review for me? And I asked her, I'm like, how's it going? She's like, I'm having a hard time getting through it. And I'm like, she's like, it's not badly written or anything. And I'm like, is it because you can't empathize with the characters? And she's like, that's exactly it. And the book, the two people are terrible. It's co-written with a friend of mine. It's from a male and female perspective, and they're two people that meet on a dating app. And they're just not good people. And it's all about the lies on the dating app. It's called 72% Match, because the dating apps match you with people on the weirdest algorithms, having nothing to do with whether or not you actually should be with the person. Yeah. But she said that to me. She's like, yeah, it's hard because I like to put myself in one of the characters. And as a reader, I think a lot of readers like to put themselves in the characters. Like they want to be that, or they're watching it and they want it. It reminds them of somebody close to them or whatever happens. So I think that happens with reviewers, as professional as they want to be. They have notions. Maybe that reviewer had been lied to once in her life by somebody, and she's like, you should never lie to people.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, when you are in romance, like if you're looking at it strictly from romance, people in romance, the hero is the white knight. You know what I mean? And in Fate Intended, the heroine in that one, she's ornery, and she likes this guy, and she knows his girlfriend is evil. So she's also his cleaning lady. So while she's doing the cleaning, it doesn't bother her to delete the emails from the girlfriend. And, so that's anti-heroine, though. A heroine wouldn't do that. But as far as she's concerned, and, it turns out she's part mafia princess and all that. So to blur the lines that doesn't make her a perfect hero. But in her mind, the ends justifies the means. The woman is evil, and she's bad for the guy. She, in her mind, is doing him a favor.
I think that's what makes villain characters the best, or morally great characters, is you have to think, okay, especially from the writer's perspective, what makes them the hero in their story? And sometimes, bad people, it's not just, for the sake of power. They're in their minds, they're thinking that they're doing what is right. And even if their thought process is completely skewed. So I think that's really good that you do that. I mean, sometimes we can't get what we want from books. I mean, Game of Thrones, I feel like every season I never got what I wanted. So, yeah. But it was still, for the most part, up until the last season, was great. So, I think that's good. Some things are not wrapped up in cute little packages.
Yeah, so I think that's why it pushes it out of romance. And I do understand why romance needs to stick to those, because the people tuning in, I'll sometimes say, I love to watch a story on the Harlequin network, and I know what I'm going to get. I don't want to sit down and start watching a Harlequin movie thinking I'm getting A, and then all of a sudden it turns into B, and you're like, whoa, I'd have went to Netflix if I wanted that. So
I would have watched Black Mirror on Netflix if I thought this was the direction the story was going.
That's it. When somebody picks it up, when it's the package, it's like my editor or like my publisher said, you can't make something look racy and then it's not racy. You know what I mean? They kind of, the reader has an idea of what they're wanting that day, and that's fine too. So, but yeah, I don't believe that there is such thing as a good person and a bad person. Like you say, even a bad person can justify in their mind. I mean, I remember telling my grandma one time, she had this guy that was coming in and doing work for her, and he seemed really nice. And I told her, I said, the thing that you have to protect yourself against is sometimes bad people, they'll justify their actions. he won't think, well, I'm going to go, hit this old lady over the head with a skillet because I want, you know what I mean? I'm a bad person. No, he'll think she underpaid me. You know what I mean? There'll be some sort of justification in their mind for doing what they do, some reckoning or something, getting even with somebody, or that person has something that should have been mine, or so, yeah, I think, and even good people, no matter, I always tell people I try to be a good person, but every day within 10 minutes of my feet on the floor, I'm screwing it up one way or another.
Join the club.
I'll be like, hey, I'm going to be Melanie Wilkes, and by 10 o'clock, I'm being a bitch. No.
Yeah, I gave up starting off like that. I'm just like I am. I'm radically honest, radically transparent. You will always know where you are with me. But at work, it's funny. I didn't realize I did this all the time, but the people that work for me, I'm in HR, by the way. I'm an HR executive over a global company, but I apparently say this phrase a lot. What in the actual fuck? Like, what? Or what the fuck has happened? Like, I say that a lot too, because I'm like, how did this go? What? Humans, though. I think you work in a job that has humans. Humans can totally change the equation of any situation very rapidly.
You never know what a human's going to do. You just, yeah, that's part of the fun, though, too, though, right?
Totally.
If I didn't enjoy things going, helter skelter, then I'd been an accountant, because, numbers don't do that to you.
Oh, totally. Okay, so when you're reading, do you want a happy ending, or can you have happy for now, or do you?
I can have happy for now. I'm okay with that. You know, I like happy. I'll even take a sad ending when I'm reading it. I'll watch movies that are sad, usually only once. No. So, I'm not queuing up Old Yeller every month to watch. So.
Yeah, my version of that is Where the Red Ferns Grow.
Yeah.
Ever seen that movie? That is a very sad movie.
No, Steel Magnolias. I'm bitter every time I go to watch that. Like, and the thing is, like, I love the scenes with the friends just sitting around and like laughing, but when we get 3/4 in, I'm like, I have to stop. I can't watch anymore because it breaks my heart.
Yeah, but you're right. All the beginning of that is so good. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have your books on audiobook?
No, I don't, and I should, but I don't know how. My publisher, I don't think, has ever done it. She's just a small publisher. And
Well, if you want to reach out, we're a publisher. We're, so
okay.
Just reach out to me and I will give you some guidance, because our goal is we're Four Horsemen Publications. That's the name of our publishing company, and we're bringing the publishing apocalypse. We're quite done with the way publishing works right now, so we're going to change it.
I once read a blog post about when I first started. I was all about trying to get the contract through one of the big publishing houses, and then I was like, screw that crap. We're Americans. We're pioneers. Let's get in our little wagons and let's just start doing this crap on our own.
That's exactly our view of it, because we looked at, like, I love the hashtag that came out. What was the exact hashtag? My book deal. What was it, Vanessa? The one that came out where people were listing what they were actually paid on their contracts for books. Like
I don't remember, but it's pretty scary, the amount. Because, I mean, writing a book is hard enough, and trying to break through, even like if you go the traditional route of getting an agent, getting a contract, no matter any way you go, it's so hard. And then you get, like, it's soul crushing to know how much someone generally makes. Like Stephen King, J.K. Rowling, like those people are, their stories are phenomenal, but they are just like 1%. Most of, like, the average writer has another job, and they pretty much make beans from their novel, and they have to keep producing and being like vigilant. So it's quite shocking the amount of money people make, or how little they make, is what I mean.
Yeah, I have a friend, and I won't name names, but got a traditional publishing contract, and has yet to make back, because you don't get paid until you make back that
Advance check.
the advance.
Yeah.
And I was like, self-publish it, because, and then what was awful is, so like I read the story prior to publication. So when he sends it in, they're like, you need to add an extra 10,000 words to be like within this word count, like magic number. So he adds the extra, they choose the cover. And then when the book comes out, like that was all just added fluff. Like it just like, you know what I mean? It took the punch out of the book, because there's all of this added stuff that he just threw in to meet a word count. And then the cover was kind of girly, and the book should have been targeted towards young men. And so I thought, the poor guy, like they're beating him up for their choices. Like he wasn't even a real big fan of the cover, and they were like, but when you're going traditional, they're the wizards in the room, so you do what they tell you to do. But then it was like, this book isn't selling. And I told him, my son at the time, the Salmon that Walked Through Half Naked with a Kitten, he loved those kind of books. He didn't like the cover. He was like, well, because I was like, you need to read this book. It's a friend of mine's. And he was like, looks like it's for girls, So, and I thought, they're beating him up for the things that they chose.
No, totally. That's why we do it completely differently. And that's why we did it, because we're all authors that are creating this publication company. And we understand that the cover is a marketing tool. Sometimes authors don't get that too. The cover is a marketing tool. That is all that it's geared. You can have whatever, like, I wanted to have it. No, shut up. What we're going to do is we're going to find what your genre wants to, will pick up this book when they see it. Or like we look at the thumbnails, like that's part of our huge thing. Like, well, how does this look as a thumbnail? Because it's great when it's like this and you have it on a shelf and you can see it, but how does it look when it's like, what is it, 2x1 and you're looking at it? Would you click on it? And it is really interesting how much people lose. And then in that scenario, they'll give advances, and if you don't sell, they'll take them back, and people don't realize that kind of happens. You have to read the fine print to go, they're going to do a takey backsy if you don't make that 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. Like I had a friend that did the 50,000 route and was given 50,000. She thought cats meow, blah, blah, blah. And they showed up after 3 years going, you didn't sell, we want the money back.
Wow.
Now, fortunately, his advance wasn't nearly that impressive. So, but like he said, I already put a roof on my house with the money, And they, and one of the things, and it could have been, because he's entry level, they told him you need to set up a website, you need to do all this. And I thought, he's still having to do all the stuff that we're having to do. I thought that just meant magically, like, I don't know, like the marketing fairies showed up at your house and were like, okay, here you go. This is how this all is set up.
I've listened to so many podcasts about exactly that scenario, that you'd be surprised that even if you went the traditional route, you got in with one of the major houses like Simon Schuster, Penguin, that even when you get picked in that season of 30-something books that they have slotted, only out of those 30, one of them will get that major push. And it's the one that you see like everywhere, the big buzz book. And other than that, even if you're traditionally published, you still have to do your own marketing. It's, again, one person out of 30 of the half of that fall season is going to get the backing. Everyone else still has to do their own work. And so that's why no matter where you are, you should always know some level of marketing, because you don't know what you're going to get. You just pray and hope that you're going to get enough support. But if not, you have to be your own support to make your own success.
And only get 6% royalties.
Oh,
don't get me started down that path, because we have to wrap up. We're getting to the end, and you'll get me down an entire tangent. Maybe it's a podcast. But so we need some shameless self-promotion from you. Tell people where to find you.
I think most of my books are most everywhere that they're sold online. Amazon. Now some of the ones I've self-published, I have done the KDP, so they are Amazon only. I have a website. I have a blog.
Which is
It's ElizabethSeckman.com, www.elizabethseckman.com, and that's Seckman with an S, not a B or an F. Everybody always wants to make me a Beckman or a Feckman, but it's a Seckman. And I also have a blog. Sometimes you just put Elizabeth Seckman in the search engine, then that kind of stuff will come up. Pictures of me and my dog. Yeah.
Oh my God, you have been amazing and wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the podcast with us.
Thank you. And thank you, Vanessa.
Thank
Oh.
you.
Okay, guys. Well, this has been Drinking with Authors. I'm Erica Lance,
And I'm Vanessa Valiente.
and we'll see you next time.
Oh, hi there. I didn't see you come in. Are you wondering what I'm reading? I'm reading the Author's Accountability Guide, produced by the Four Horsemen. Do you need a day-to-day guide on how to write your book, novel, prose, whatever you're doing with your life? Because writing is hard. This has day-by-day instructions, week-by-week tracking, and motivational things from your muses. So, grab a drink, grab a book, and get some fucking writing done.
Okay. Woohoo! Literary Briefs, Drinking with Authors. Literary Briefs episode. It's where we ask rapid fire questions. Where I think I ask rapid fire. We all know that. Okay. Anybody who's listening knows that I don't do well in the rapid fire questions. Okay. So I am Erica Lance. With me as my co-host today is,
Vanessa Valiente.
and we have an amazing guest today. Would you like to introduce yourself, my friend?
I'm Elizabeth Seckman.
I like how you said that. That didn't have a lot of fanfare. You're like,
No.
I'm Elizabeth Seckman. I showed up to the podcast. Thank you.
No.
Okay, we have to talk about what we're drinking so people can drink along in the privacy of their own home or another's home. Don't drink and drive. I am drinking a Stella Rosa. I'm actually out of it. I have my last glass of the Stella Rosa because that's happening today. And it's a bubbly red wine, bubbly chilled red wine. Vanessa, what are you drinking?
I am still drinking Stella. It's all reliable, it's delicious, and great on a hot summer day. That sounded like an ad. I'm so sorry.
I can tell you've had a couple of them by the smile on your face as well. And what are you drinking? My friend who's on the podcast.
I have my Barefoot Fruscato with the gourmet screw tap. Don't anybody?
Screw tap, and it's strawberry, and
as you can tell, I'm a half a bottle in, so it's now a screw tap, not a cap.
We feel you on that one completely. Okay, so rapid fire questions. You ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, what is your favorite book?
I'm gonna get beat up for this, but it's Gone with the Wind. But I hear that's not popular to say anymore.
No, that's not popular to say.
Well, I don't think people read it. Nobody's read it. Like, Scarlett is not a nice person. If you read that book, she is a bitch. She truly is. Mammy carries the book. Mammy is the woman. She is the boss, and people overlook that. So I should probably pick something else also. Because, I don't want to look hateful, but I really do. I think if people would actually read the book, like, you would be like, damn, Scarlett, we thought you were she's a bad person. She doesn't even like her own children in the book. She doesn't like anybody. She's ruthless. The lady's ruthless. So, but anyhow, I have so many favorites. Right now, anything by Ann Tyler, I would love to read. I love those books. I also like Wuthering Heights. I like Thornbirds. I like you give me any book with a main character who should be a good person but has their flaws. I'm ready to read. So
awesome. Okay, follow-up question. What is your least favorite book?
Ooh. Oh my. I really didn't like 1984, but I read it because, I felt like I should. And it took me forever to read Pride and Prejudice. I
Oh
wasn't.
no, today's the day of Jane Austen being thrown in a dumpster fire
No,
because I
don't do it. I love her.
I hate her.
True. I was like,
I
I
don't do it.
hate the fact that she created an entire trope and an entire, you know what I mean, like that. So I do respect that, but man, I'll tell you, took some time. I think I picked that book up and put it down, and then everybody's like, "Oh, you gotta read it, you gotta read it," and I'd be like, "Oh, okay, fine." So I'd pick it up, and I'd be like, one chapter in, I'm out, and then I'd pick it back up, and so finally made it through. But I can't say, yeah, I'm not going to start a dumpster fire with any book, but you know.
I would. I'd start a dumpster fire with all of her books. They are really too long and too verbose, and I know people love them, but this is my personal opinion here on Drinking with Authors. And guess what? Jane Austen is not capable of being a guest, so I do not have to worry that I've offended her.
That's right. Always pick the people that you aren't going to pick it up and be like, well, that wasn't nice.
Yeah, no, trust me. I actually trust E.L. James will never be on this podcast either. When I've gotten in conversations about her because I have a whole different view. Okay, rapid fire questions. What is a pet peeve as a reader?
Oh, I don't like, I hate it when people over explain to me. I hate that. I hate it. I don't want you to tell me, well, somebody did this because their motives are X, Y, and Z. Just have them do it. I'll figure out the motives. Readers are a whole lot smarter than people give us credit for. I mean, just the fact that you're picking up a book and reading it, just right there, just ups your IQ by at least 100 points.
So basically, show don't tell, right?
Yeah.
And-
I don't need to be beaten over the head with this person's a nice person. Look, they climbed a tree and saved a cat. No, they climbed a tree and saved a cat. They're a good person. You got to tell me.
What hooks you in a book? Like what when somebody does this particular thing, you're hooked. You're good to go.
I think I do need to connect. I don't have to I don't have to connect thinking that that's me in the story. I have to like somebody. Like I have to want to root for them. If I just think they're just like a crappy person, then what is there to root for? You know? So yeah, I am looking for somebody that even if they're broken, even if they're doing bad things, if there's some semblance of good, I do like to be the cheerleader for somebody finding their humanity. So I do like that, and I'm not real sure. Like I have started asking myself, like as a writer, what is it that as a reader will snag me into a book? And I'll go back to like Ann Tyler. I forget the name of the book, which is awful, but it starts off with the guy on the train, and he's just watching this lady wearing a coat, and I'm like, this lady's genius because she somehow puts a guy on a train, no high stakes. He's just sitting on a train watching this woman and wondering who she is, and I'm like, but somehow I'm intrigued because now I want to know who that person is. So like, she's not telling you, oh, this woman is probably this, or this. She's just saying she's dressed like this. She's got the certain mannerisms. And so like, now I want to know if that's right. So, I think I call it like a breadcrumb trail. I like to follow the breadcrumb trail. So drop me some breadcrumbs, and then I want to see if I was right or on the same path that you were on. So don't make it too obvious.
Have you ever been like what are your favorite books to like be wowed at the end? Like one of the things I hate predictable books. Like it drives me crazy to have predictable books. I like books where there is a law at the end of the book, like and they do it very well. I think it's an entire like skill set to do a twist at the end that's really nice. How do you feel about twists?
I like twists. I think it's sometimes hard to catch writers in a twist. Like we're not your average readers. So, okay, so like you even take Girl on a Train. I think that's the name of the movie.
Mhm.
And I'm already picking up the things, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be this or this. My kid's like, would you shut up? Like, you're ruining it.
Really
like
quick
that-
it was.
Yeah, but like that Chekhov gun theory, a good writer isn't going to leave a gun on the table unless it's going to be used so you spot it and you're like, oh, this and that's going to happen. So yeah, if you can kind of like make me go, whoa, didn't see that coming. In Bruges, you ever seen that movie? I
No.
That movie, I swear, it is the tightest written script ever. I mean, just from beginning to end, everything, and the ending did wow me. But I
Wow.
won't give it away. If you want to watch that movie. I mean, if you want to look at like how to put together like a tight plot, like everything, even like he's in Bruges and they're hitmen and they're going. I think it's Colin Firth is in the movie, and so they're going up into this watchtower, and there's these Americans going in, and they're like, you probably don't want to go up there because you know it's a really long climb, and they're kind of heavy set people, and that comes back. That comes back in the story where I think I can't remember if they said like some fat American had a heart attack in the tower. I can't remember how it went, but like it's subtle too. So it's not like somebody just says, "Oh, the tower's closed." Some fat American had a heart attack in the tower. So, but you know what I mean? Like everything circles back. So super tight, and the ending is an amazing ending, and it does kind of make you go, "Wow."
Very cool. Do you have a playlist when you write? Do you have a music playlist or?
I don't have music. A lot of times I always leave the news on in the background, and it just kind of turns into like a droll or something nonsensical, like Hoarders or some TV show.
Orders is definitely nonsensical. Good.
Yeah.
That's a
But
whole thing.
you can turn that on and look up every now and then and go, you're getting your stuff together. Good for you. Back down. Didn't miss anything. No major plots missing. So.
How much do you write when you sit down in an hour? How much do you usually bang out?
I can usually, once I sit down and write, and I think that lately with the COVID thing and my kids being back home, um, the getting into the zone is the hard part. So if I sit down and I have an hour, it's going to take me 15 minutes of, checking email and doing this and doing that, and then start writing before I can even get started. So once I'm like writing, I can easily do probably 200 to 500 words an hour easily. Not all of them good. A lot of them, the next day I'll go back and be like, well, I did 800 words yesterday. 2 of them are keepable. No. So it depends on which kind of words you're looking at. But I always tell writer friends of mine, write the crap, because crap is good fertilizer. Even if you can't come up with something, you put whatever crap you can think of, like in your mind. My mom had one time told me this, and I think it was the best advice I ever had. She was like, stop trying to impress me with how well you write and just tell me the damn story. So every now and then when I'm thinking, well, how do I say this? How do I make this sound good? I'll hear my mom, and she's like, just tell me the damn story. Stop trying to impress me. And so then I'll just write. And then later on you can go back through and pick better words, or, maybe words that sound more literary, or, so, but it's just getting that crap down on paper that you can weed through it later and, find the pretty little flowers that are growing through the crap. And
Very cool. You said you had a writers group. Do you have a writers group or a group of friends? Do you have a critique group?
yeah, I do. I have probably at least, well, there's 2 of us that do romance. And 2 of them do like sci-fi, young adult. So we have kind of like a mix, so like a genre mix of people in our group. And then we have one lady in our group that's just a reader. She's not at all interested in reading, but she loves to read, and she'll do all of our early readings and proofing and things like that. So she's invaluable, probably the best member of the group we have.
I was going to say that's the golden queen of that particular group. Yes.
But I always tell her, you have no idea what your value is, and we love you.
Have you gone and read in front of your fans?
No, I've always declined to do that because, as you can tell by my introduction when you said, "Who are you?" Like, I do okay talking, but like reading my own stuff, I'm like, no, I'd rather y'all just ask me to walk over some hot coals before I get there. And read it. So, no, I've never done it. Now, I do read it out loud before publishing. I'll do it in the privacy of my own home because that's the best way to, especially with dialogue, to hear whether or not dialogue kind of comes across as to read it out loud.
No,
So.
totally. Do you think that you what about panels? Have you ever done panels conversations?
I've done a couple of panels. I've done a few. That's where I learned to kind of be careful that I don't sound like I'm attacking romance, because I've had some romance writers be like, romance has, you know what I mean? Like when I say I oftentimes diverge from the romance trope into like women's issues, and they'll be like, romance does that too. And I'm like, I'm not saying romance isn't awesome. I love romance. So I'm just saying that the industry likes to pigeonhole everything. And so anytime you do that, they're going to say you just left romance and went into women's fiction. To me, they're the same, I think.
Yeah, no, and I think, to your point, you can find people that will agree or disagree with any point you have in the entire universe on the internet. Like I've said that, like I could say, you know what, we are all actually from alien chrysalises that are formed and nobody knows that. And I could find articles and people that would 100% agree with me and back me up that this was the case. So I think it's interesting. As authors, I think we start with less thick skin than, not me in particular, because bullets, but I think that it's really easy as an author, because you're an artist, to have really, really thick skin. I mean, really, really
Yeah.
thin skin. I can use words, wine. And then you have to get your thick skin and realize you don't care. Oh, well, hello, it's a little kitty cat coming to join the conversation.
Hello,
Oh, so
Callie.
cute.
Yeah, you can go down here, little girl.
She's not a little girl. That is a big cat.
Oh, she's a kitten. She's a kitten. She's not even a year old yet.
What? She looks much older.
She's huge. It's terrifying. A friend of mine has a Maine Coon, and it's literally 6 months old and the size of their dog. And I'm like, that thing's going to be a monster.
But she's got an eating disorder. She would come and drink the wine. She'll eat right out. She gotta watch that one. So.
Oh, I
yeah.
believe that. Drunk cats, that's probably not a good idea. But I think as an author, you have to get kind of a thick skin to the fact that you're not going to get everybody to agree with you. You're supposed to have your opinions. You're writing, you're doing well. You've published 7 books. Like, I don't, obviously not going out intentionally to offend people, but you saying that is not an offensive term. You instead ran into defensive romance writers, because there is a trope, and yes, they can kind of go outside the boundaries, but I'll tell you, if they're traditionally published, they are squarely seated in that trope, period.
Yeah.
If Harlequin's publishing them, they are a Harlequin romance book, and I can pick up any Harlequin romance book, and it's not that it's not well written, and it's not that it's not entertaining and blah blah blah, but it is a Harlequin book.
It is what it is, and the readers who read that want it to be what it is. They don't want to. It'd be like grabbing a Snickers bar, and it's and it's a Reese cup. You're like, well, I bought a Snicker bar. I mean, I understand that, and I think, personally, I think my things don't offend me very much, but I do worry about offending other people. I would never want to hurt someone's feelings or make them think that I'm denigrating what they're doing, because I'm not. But I do think that, like, a lot of romance writers, they get crapped on so much. I think it's just kind of like, well, I'm a real writer too. And I'm always telling them, hey, the proof's in the pudding. I mean, that's where the money is a lot of times. There's a reason why there's a whole network TV show filled with these stories. People love them. You
I
know?
think it's just easier for romance novel like writers. They're just more defensive because it's true. A lot of people do make them seem like they're at the bottom, and they're not. There's writers out there, and they write great stories. And just because they're not writing literary fiction, they're writing genre fiction, doesn't discredit what they're doing or the value of what they're doing. Because, in my personal opinion, if you have the power to make someone else read a book, you're doing your job, and you have value any more than a literary fiction writer. So.
I
I
agree.
I agree, and I think one of the things too is there's an approach. Are you a full-time writer? Are you doing this full-time?
Well, no, I do. I had been substituting. I'm actually in the middle of looking at different jobs and like returning to social work. I've been working as a substitute teacher and mostly because I think that social work person, you know what I mean? She needs to get out and be among people every now and then too. Whenever I was just only writing, I found that I wasn't writing as much. Like, and that sounds insane, but it's like once my kids were all, there's the whole empty nest, and I thought, well, I'm gonna have like 8 hours a day and just devoted to writing, and I'm like, I just spent 6 hours watching Hoarders, and so, I think sometimes when you are kind of social, get out there and do that stuff, and then that keeps you like writing is that thing you want to do. So when you get back home, you're like, ooh, I'm gonna grab like 2 hours and write.
No, I agree. I think that different people do it for different reasons. You have to, when you're going to be a full-time writer, you have to switch into job mode. And that's what every full-time writer that I've talked to does. Like, you have to treat it like your 9 to 5 or whatever your schedule is, but you have to get up in the morning and this is what you're doing. So you allot your time for your social media, and you allot your time for your marketing, and you allot your time for your research, but at least 8 hours you need to be sitting in front of that desk doing, or however it is you write comfortably, writing that stuff that you want to write. And I think that we have the dream. It's kind of like during this time of COVID, a lot of us are at home. A lot of our social activities have gone to non-existence. I mean, obviously, you have what I jokingly call coworkers that have moved back in with you, and those create their own little problems. But you would have thought when we all talked about to our author friends, and I want to be home and I want to be able to have all this time and blah blah blah, and we have it. And I think it's stopped more people than helped.
I agree with that 100%. And I know when I was working as a substitute teacher, it was kind of perfect because, if I had, a book I wanted to finish, I'd just take no work that week. And then, if I wanted to work, or it got me out of the house enough to where I was interacting with people. I wasn't like just sitting there staring at a wall thinking, well, now what should I do? Because, instead I would be constantly thinking of, I've only got 2 hours. I need to get, like, just having that having the time crunch is like, I gotta get this and this done. And, whereas if I had 8 hours, I'd be like, well, I gotta get that done, but so and then I told a friend of mine, I said, I probably sound horrible on interviews because I'll go on interviews, and so I'll be like I'll be interviewing for like part-time positions, and they'll go, well, this might turn into a full-time position. I'm like, I'm out. They're probably like, what's wrong with this woman? And I'm like, I told her, I said, should I go into interviews and go, I'm looking to dabble? Do you have a dabbler position to where I can come in maybe 20, 30 hours a week and still be able to continue to write? Does that look bad in an interview? So yeah, probably not the best way to interview for a job. So.
You obviously need to be a barista at Starbucks. They will have a completely different view of that situation.
Now, a friend of mine was like, are there any hotels in your town? Tell him you want to be the night clerk. I was like, that would be perfect. But no, we don't have very many. So.
No, but it makes sense because, trying to find something that aligns with your writingness is a totally different thing. What if somebody asked you before you got to the point you are, um, uh, what is? I guess the question is, what is the weirdest thing you think you've discovered as a writer that you would never have thought of before these 7 books were published? What is the thing that you were like, wow, I had no idea?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a tough question. I suppose I would have to say the thing that I've realized that I think that I've found out about myself that I think differs from some of my writer friends is I really honestly kind of don't give a shit. Like, I know a lot of them are like, if I don't have a contract within 1 year, I'm out. If I don't make X number of dollars within 5 years, I'm out. I'm like, hell, I'll be doing this till I'm dead. And be like, going, I just made enough to buy chocolate. I'm good. I'm good. So
I think that's why it's so important to have realistic goals. You can't control like how much money you're gonna make, but you can control finishing a book, and which is a struggle in itself to finish a book. Erica knows because she yells at me all the time to finish mine, and
She has a deadline
you
now.
just have to. Oh, I know. She
I
forced a
use the
deadline on me.
I always tell my publisher, God bless her heart, she's so nice, but I'm always like, you really should be mean to me because deadlines help.
That's my job at the publication company. I am the mean one. I'm the one that goes, okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to look out the next 4 or 5, whatever, however many books. And I'm like, you have to have it done by this date. And then I'll check in with you and go, how are you doing? What are you doing? You have to have it done. And a lot of people just work a lot better under deadlines. You don't want to have them, but you work a lot better if you have a looming thing and you have 3 months or 2 weeks or whatever it is that's coming up that you have to have the book done by.
Yeah. Well, and I think I've also found out that I am somewhat crazy. I used to always joke. I used to always joke with my friends and be like, all the really good writers are kind of crazy. Like there's that portion of them that like there's just something that isn't making their brains function like normal human beings. And the longer I've been on the journey, I'm like, holy crap. I'm realizing that sitting in a yard and staring at a cloud for like an hour isn't normal. And I always thought that was normal, but it's not really normal. So I might actually be a little bit on that crazy genre. Be there. So, like one of the things I do is like a whole self-sabotage thing. Like I'll have a whole bunch of momentum going and then I'm just gonna take a 3-month break, guys. Nobody's gonna see me. I think, why am I doing this? This is abnormal. So yeah, I've had to kind of face that within myself. That's not normal. That's not a normal way to approach life. Is to check out of reality for like a month or 2 at a time.
It's true. Actually, I just interviewed an author who does nonfiction books, and she's putting out a book comes out in January called Couch Potato. And it talks about this exact point and sort of her journey on how one gets into these ruts and then how to get oneself out of these ruts. Because I think we all experience them to a degree. Like you, I can get on Netflix and I can binge stuff with the best of them, and you can sit for days just watching the shows roll by.
Yeah.
Even if you work, you go home, maybe eat dinner, and then you sit in front of the TV or play a video game or whatever else besides actually writing. So I agree with you 100%. That is a part of being a writer, but I think it's a part of being an artist. You have to have that creative side of you that is an epic artist to do any kind of art.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because it was my son that pointed it out because I probably never would have noticed it because I find ways to get myself busy. Like it wouldn't even look like he said one day, he was like, so you really need to redo that whole basement? Like, is that really something you need to do? Or are you avoiding doing a book? Oh, why did I give birth to people who can psychoanalyze me? Go away. Like, but if you say to other people, oh, I put that off, I'm doing a basement project, they'd be like, oh, well, yeah, nobody's like going, wait a minute, you've been sitting on a couch not bathing for like a month, you probably should get back to work. You know, so he was like, is that really something that needs to be done, or are you distracting yourself again? And
I
watch.
think that's why it's so important to voice your goals out loud, because the people that care about you are going to be like, so you said a week ago that you were going to do XYZ. Where are you at on this? And so even if you feel like you can't get it done, just speak it out loud, and someone will be there to be like, you need to do it. Have faith in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, like, logically, I wasn't saying to myself, let's put this off because you've got high hopes for this. What if it doesn't? What if it isn't that one thing? Or what if it doesn't turn? Like, logically in my head, I'm not saying that to myself. I'm thinking I really need to finish that last chapter. But you know, when I put that laundry in today, that basement, if I just went through and clean, I bet I could do that like in an hour. You know, 1 week later, you're still, you know. So yeah, that's the lie you kind of tell yourself, and that's the thing I didn't notice that I did until, you know, you're in the midst of doing it.
Brilliance, 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 my friend. You have been an epically fun guest to have on. By the way, you are wonderful, and you would be wonderful in front of your fans. I'm just going to say that. Once you get past saying the name out loud, maybe just get a card that says it on there so you can hold it up, and then you can get to the fun stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That
you
is-
are incredibly entertaining, and your life stories are so interesting. So you should get out there and read to your fans. I bet $1 million they would love to meet you and
well,
interact.
I will do things like that. I always tell people I'll come out for anything, including chocolate. You know, the reading though, I have asked people. I did go to a book club one time, and this is another thing that's weird as a writer. Do you guys remember your books?
No, oh, I know the readers do though. Oh God.
So yeah, I'm sitting at this book club and they're talking about one that I'd written, you know, maybe 2 years ago. And I'm like, I don't even remember that. And I don't remember that. And the one lady goes, did you even write this? And I'm like, well, they're all lies. And you know what people say about lies? You don't remember the lies. No, I don't remember.
Well, you know what? It's because you've written that book so many times. I was just telling this to someone the other day, is that even though, like, you know, I know what it says in front of me, I know every other version or iteration of that paragraph was. And sometimes you forget where am I at? Like, which version are we on? Because I still remember all the bad ones prior to that.
Yeah, I did make that comment one time. I did say, I don't remember where I landed on that. Tell me again. What was the outcome of that? Because I had like 3 different scenarios in my head. Which one did I go with? And that's when the lady started laughing, and she said, did you even write this book? Like, yeah, note to self, skim the book before you go to a book club, because those book clubs.
Yeah, no, they know your book. They will call you out on crap. They're like, do you remember? And I'm like, oh my God. No, I don't. That's like 20 stories ago. I have no idea what you're talking about. But anyway, it has been brilliant to have you on. Please tell everybody how to find you.
Okay, you can find me on the internet. If you even just put Elizabeth Seckman into your search engine, it should come up. But I do have a website. It's www.elizabethseckman.com.
Wonderful. And all your books are on all the major things, and there's a few of them on KDP, correct?
Yes, I have. There's quite a few. I think there's at least 2 or 3 KDP. I know the ones that I've self-published are on. The Swept Away was self-published, and it's KDP only. So it's the only one that's only on Amazon. I think all the rest, well, any of them on KDP are only on Amazon, right? So
Yeah.
few of those. And then I have About Us is the one that I just released, and it is free. Because I figured, you know, it hit kind of, I won't say it hit perfectly because COVID stinks, but, you know, I had already planned on doing it for free. So, but then, you know, when it kind of came out right before the COVID thing. So I thought, even if it wasn't going to come out for free, I would have put it out for free. So just to kind of give back to everybody who's, yeah, these are tough times. Everybody could use all the freebies they can get.
Exactly. You have been wonderful. It has been absolutely awesome having you on the podcast. We will stay connected. I'll send you an email after this so we can absolutely stay connected. So thank you very much for being on. And you did perfect for your first podcast, so good job.
I think the wine helped. I'm going to do wine in everything. I'm going to be like,
It always helps. What
Yeah,
are you talking about?
Yeah, that is hashtag true stories. With that, this has been Drinking with Authors. I'm Erica Lance,
And I'm Vanessa Valiente.
and we'll see you next time.